Joined by Alex and Josh for a little podcast today, just talking about football. How are you doing, Alex and Josh?
I'm good, thanks. Yep, very good. Very good. How are you?
Yeah, all good. Yeah, been enjoying the Euros. Obviously, tough for it to be finished. But we move on. How are you doing, Josh?
All good, thanks, mate. Yeah, looking forward to talking to you again.
Great. All right, well, let's get started. I'll share my screen. Here we go. How do you present this? Oh, it's looking a bit different today. There we go. All right. Cool. So we'll kick off. Here's the little agenda we got. Talk a little bit about England, then a bit how we each got on the Euros game for FanTeam. Then looking ahead to the Prem season, and then we're going to talk quite a bit about how Josh won the Prem game last year and learnings from that really. So to kick us off, what did you both make of England the other day?
Yeah, well, we were both lucky enough, Josh and I, to be together at Wembley watching the game, which was a pretty incredible experience, to be fair. I think Josh will agree. The atmosphere beforehand was just insane. It's like nothing you've ever seen before. Unfortunately, the end result was not so spectacular, but amazing day.
Yeah, we felt like the luckiest people in the world till about the 129th minute of the game, I think, and then it didn't feel so good after that when we realised we had to get all the way back to South London from Wembley with no public transport running. So that was when the evening changed. But it was great atmosphere. Everything we saw was all just a lot of passionate supporters wanting England to win. Obviously, everyone sort of came together. It was really nice. I didn't feel tense really. It didn't feel that tense throughout the game because I think, especially in the first half, I don't know about what you think, Glenn, but I thought we were in total control of the game, to be honest.
Yeah, first half we looked great, to be honest. Like I did think we continued to sit back a bit, but I didn't feel like Italy were really threatening. Like I felt like we had it under control. Then I guess, second half I think they stepped up. I don't know. Did you notice that, Alex?
Yeah, it seemed like it, even until the goal, though, to be honest with you. I mean, they started to look a bit more threatening, but I felt like we were containing them relatively well. And then, the goal was one of those ones where obviously it comes from a set piece and Pickford makes an amazing save. I'm an Everton fan as well as a point of reference, I love Jordan. But it's one of those, it's very unfortunate then Bonucci's there for the rebound and suddenly, 1-1, it's you've got to change your approach and the game shifted.
Yeah, Mancini made a really good sub as well when he took off Immobile. He made a double change, but it was mainly Immobile going off and then basically just playing like almost a false nine and just doing the triangle passes. Like it seemed like they went for that approach and it was much more effective against us because Immobile did not have a good game for the first. I think he went off on 55, didn't he? I think, or something like that. It seemed like that was almost the catalyst for them playing differently because before that they just had like pot shots from like 30 yards, 20 yards. That's all I could see that was happening for the whole of the first sort of 50 minutes. But it was a very strange game. I never thought we were going to lose it at any point, but except for maybe the last 3 minutes where we played a right winger at right back. But
that was scary, wasn't it?
That was terrifying, wasn't it, Doyle? In the ground, that was scary, wasn't it?
Yeah, I couldn't believe that. I mean, particularly after we'd been getting ready for the game in a strong way. We'd had a few drinks and then trying to watch Sancho and Rashford play fullback for 5 minutes. It's not one to settle the nerves, is it really?
Yeah.
I feel like we even had chances, like not so many. I mean, I think we only had 2 shots on target in the whole game, but I feel like we got in behind quite a bit in wide areas, especially. Like we had those like chances that don't go down as chances on the statistics, but like we got in behind and maybe the last cross wasn't ideal or it didn't quite drop on Kane's foot. And then obviously I think there was a couple of contentious decisions that went against us as well that might have really changed the game. I think there's probably 2 red card shouts, I think, including like a second yellow and in
the one on Grealish.
And the Jorginho tackle was awful. Like looking back at it, I think we sort of felt it was a bad one at the time, didn't we, Doyle? But
I can't remember that one in the ground, to be honest with you. I don't remember seeing that. I remember the Chiellini one where he horse collars him.
That was
more of that was like an NFL tackle. That they do that in NFL. They get they get taken out of the game for that. Not in football though, apparently, which I think is fair enough. You know, it's quite commonly given if you take someone out and they're running, you get away with it. But looking at it looks pretty dodgy, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think the Jorginho one looks bad when you obviously freeze it. I'm not sure if it's an horrendous tackle, but like I think he catches him really high, and they did. I remember they did briefly pause for a VAR review in the stadium. It was like a really short one, but like they
5 seconds. Yeah,
they did pause for it, and like so I knew something might have happened, and I was just hoping we got lucky with that kind of decision, because I think 11-10 was sort of an advantage that we needed really to like really try and get the winner or whatever. So.
Because the thing is, and like bringing to penalties as well, like I'm thinking like in the stadium, like need everyone there like shouting, like getting behind them, and like when Rashford goes up for the pen, like everyone should be shouting, like chanting for Rashford. And I was just wondering like what, because I couldn't really hear it, like what was it like in the stadium then?
I thought the whole game, it was quite tense, really. I don't know if you'd agree, Josh. At the start, it was obviously when we scored, it was pretty crazy. But I think the way we approached the game, because we scored so early and we invited so much pressure, I think that did create a lot of nerves in the ground, it felt, which meant the fans weren't getting into, the chanting side of it as much as they normally would. Perhaps, if we'd have scored later on, or if the game had been in a slightly different flow. Yeah. I do feel that the fans weren't quite as active as they normally would be.
Yeah, I think it was not, for the penalties especially, we tried to apply pressure as much as possible. Like we tried to really make the Italians feel uncomfortable on the walk-ups and tried to really support the England players. But ultimately, me and Dole said before the penalty started, we were like, what chance do you give us of actually winning this penalty shootout? And we agreed it was like 20%, didn't we, Dole, of winning? Yeah, it just never felt like we were going to beat that goalkeeper. He's just incredible, isn't he, their goalkeeper?
You say that though. I thought Pickford was great yesterday, or not yesterday, on Sunday, wasn't he? Like he had a really good game for him, and I thought.
Yeah, and I mean, 2 of the penalty saves, which were great as well. I mean, that Jorginho one was really tough. And when he saved that, that's when I thought, that's when I thought we had hope. And to be honest with you, it hadn't really clicked even when Saka missed that we'd actually lost at that stage until I saw the players run on.
Same for us watching it at the on the big screen. Like we went jubilant when Jorginho missed, and then when Saka missed, we didn't actually realise that it was finished. Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah, that we were an extra one behind. But yeah, it's obviously it's disappointing, but I think there's obviously going to be a lot of questions about Southgate. But ultimately, a semi-final followed by a final, it's hard to disagree too much. And people say it's this incredible crop of talent, and they are good players, but I mean, you compare it to France's squad, for instance, I don't think it's really comparable to that. Even comparing it to former England squads back in 2005, 2006, that sort of era, it's still not on the same level as those teams, in my opinion. So I think what Southgate's done is he's instilled an incredible chemistry in that team where they play together, they like each other, and they all get on. And I think that really shows on the pitch, even if sometimes you could argue his tactics are a bit too defensive.
Yeah, I think people just I think in general, all of his critics just want him to have like an extra one of the attackers in the team somehow. But and to be honest, which one that is going to differ from person to person. Personally, I think you can't criticize the guy at all. To be honest, I think he's been the most successful manager since Alf Ramsey for England. Like the record speaks for itself. Semi-final, then final. We're the only country to have got to at least the semi-final of the last 2 tournaments. Like we're the only one in the world. The 2018 squad was, to be generous, they were underdogs in that tournament. Let's put it like that. I think a semi-final achievement was almost a minor miracle in that tournament, to be honest.
Yeah.
This tournament, we were definitely amongst the favourites, but to get to the final, I mean, there's countries that didn't get anywhere near, like Belgium and France, who are phenomenal football talents. So I think we have to take it as it doesn't feel like it, but you have to take it as a minor success again this tournament. We've never got to this final before, so it's another hurdle ticked off, I suppose. And yeah, it's just some good momentum for the World Cup next year, hopefully. And it's good, I suppose, that the World Cup is next year rather than we have to wait 2 years. You know what I mean? So that's another positive, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm with you. To be fair, I think Southgate's done a great job, and I think, was it France in 2016? They lost like a Euros at home to Portugal, and then they won the World Cup. So hopefully we can do the same in Qatar, but who knows? I was just going to ask both of you, like, where does this rank in terms of like your worst football moments as a fan?
I think it's tough. It was definitely really disappointing. You could feel that, like when you're walking off. It was very disappointing. I feel like it's tough as well, though, because I think when you're younger, it does mean more to you. If you see what I mean, like back in those days, if Everton lost in a UEFA Cup game or something, I'd be devastated, I'd be crying, that sort of thing. So it's difficult to say, but it was obviously hugely disappointing. And but yeah, like you say, I think there's a lot of hope there, isn't there, for the team that we got the next tournament, like you say, and fingers crossed for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were definitely dejected at full time. It was a really very quiet walk back from the stadium to the tube station, which is quite a far walk, by the way. So there's a lot of time for like reflection there. But I was definitely much more upset. This is a bit of a throwback, but in 2002 when we lost 2-1 to Brazil, I remember I was crying on the sofa. A little 8-year-old Josh was like absolutely devastated that we got knocked out in the quarterfinals. I was much more upset then. So. No, there wasn't any crying, was the door from either of us. Yeah, not that we're going to admit anyway, but it was just, I was just gutted that because we were there. I just wanted to be there for the success. It would have been such a jubilant, like 3-4 hours after the game. We're like doing the trophy presentation, seeing all the players like having achieved their dreams. Like I just really wanted to see it, to be honest, and like. It's just so close so far, isn't it? It's just that classic saying. So
yeah, it's sad. Yeah, because I remember like the Croatia one a couple of 3 years ago even, and I was I think it was in Hyde Park, and that was like a really sad atmosphere because obviously like we went ahead as well. But yeah, like with this, like we have lost to a really good team. So in a way, I'm just like really excited to see these guys at the next tournament. I really believe in them.
Yeah, we were definitely more upset in 2018, weren't we, Dole? Do you remember that? Back in sunny Warsaw, we were in my hometown, Glen, and we were absolutely devastated. And my brother was there, and he was devastated as well.
I remember when we lost against Croatia in the pub, and I literally walked out to the side of the pub and sat there for 20 minutes on my own before walking over to McDonald's in the middle of nowhere, while Josh's mum had to try and find where I was. They had a search party out for me.
Yeah, I kept my eye on you this time, so we were all right. We just went straight to the station, didn't we, this time? So
yeah. Cool. Should we move on to happier topics and
let's get away from
Euros game?
All right. So I guess kick off with you, Alex. How did you get on?
Or maybe not happier topics though. It was okay. I ended up just under break even. I think I had 27 teams. A few of them were sort of free teams from FanTeam. And ended up cashing for 480, I think. So it's about break even, give or take, essentially. My best team came in about 600, and total of 11 teams cashed. I was taking quite sort of a high variance route throughout the tournament, really trying to shoot for the high places. So my top team, for instance, had 6 Spain players, I think, 5 or 6 Spain players. So them getting knocked out in the semi-finals on penalties was pretty disappointing for that, because that team finished the semi-finals around in about 250th, 300th. So if they'd have actually won that game, and I had all those Spain players when most people were piling Italy, there would have been a chance for a really high cash. So one of those where the fine margins sort of go against you. But yeah, overall was okay.
Because Spain looked really good against Italy. Like if it wasn't for I can't pronounce his name, or is it Oriziabo or Morata being able to finish properly, then who knows? Yeah, it looked like Morata didn't even try for the penalty, to be honest, in the shootout. So it was gutting.
Yeah,
that was the equivalent to if Sterling had stepped up for us, I think. I think if Sterling had stepped up, I'd have just been like, well, let's go on to the next penalty, because this one's not going in, unfortunately. But Spain had everything up till the last part, which is the scoring of the goal, wasn't it? They looked really good in all the build-up play and everything, and then they just didn't have anyone to put the ball in the net against Italy. It really showed in that game, I think.
A couple of really good players, don't they? Pedri and Olmo particularly really impressed me that game. I'm surprised Olmo didn't get more minutes really throughout, but
yeah, he looked great.
Really impressive.
Pedri had an incredible tournament. I think he made a lot of teams of the tournament. I think an 18-year-old kid. He's like, and I think he got the second most minutes for Barcelona last year as well. So he must be a real player, and it really did show in this tournament.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just thinking like a Prem club maybe offer Barcelona 50 mil. Be great if bring him to the Prem, wouldn't it?
Yeah, maybe get him at Arsenal, Glenn. Maybe.
Oh, I'd love him. But yeah, it is tough in the Prem with the physicality. But yeah, I back him.
A Dani Ceballos replacement from Spain.
Yeah. So, Josh, how did your teams get on?
Oh, we'll definitely gloss over this as quickly as possible. I was just going to say, like, I think Doyle was more wanted Spain to win on penalties than England to win on penalties.
Oh, really?
So I think that would have benefited him more, I think, to be honest. But no, so I obviously max entered, and I think I got 31 in the money. And to be honest, going into the last sort of 2 weeks, I only had a shot. I think only 40 of my teams had a chance of getting in the money. So to get 31 in, I was pretty happy with that. The problem was they literally all min cashed except for 2, I think. Okay. So like it wasn't quite enough to get my money back to break even. But I was happy with the amount I got in the money. It was one of them, Glenn. We'll talk about it in a bit, I'm sure. But my tournament was over by the end of the group stage, pretty much. I think I only had 2 in the money out of 100 at that point. Like it was just a case of trying to salvage as much as possible. Going into the knockout stage and stuff. So, and I went really heavy on England actually. So that definitely helped me to salvage a lot more teams in the money. So
yeah,
definitely learned a lot from this tournament. Definitely lost money, but I'm overall happy with it, to be honest. And I can't complain too much after the luck I've had recently.
So who were the players you went for in the group stage that didn't perform? Was it a lot of like Kane's and Mbappe's captains?
Yeah, so the opposite to you, I think. So definitely Harry Kane. I had so much Harry Kane. I was absolutely certain he was going to go. He was going to go off, to be honest. And I noticed he was really quite underowned compared to some of the other big hitters up front. So I went loads of Kane. I didn't sell him after week 1 either, when a lot of other people sold him. I think for the likes of, I'm not sure who. Maybe they went for Lukaku or Ronaldo or even Immobile, someone like that. But yeah, I stuck with Kane for the 3 games, and that was 3 blanks, wasn't it? It must have been 3 blanks. I think it must have been like 2-3-2 or something like that. So that was like, you can't afford that in your 13.5 million striker slot when literally every other premium striker scored at least 2 goals, I think, in the group stage. I mean, bar maybe Mbappe, as you said. I probably lost just like 20 points in that position alone. You know what I mean? On I think I had him in like half my teams, and I captained him in quite a few of those as well. So yeah, that was where it was lost mainly for me. I wasn't really heavy on the defenders either. I think a lot of the teams that did well in the group stage had sort of 4 or 5 of the flying wing backs at the back. I mean, I played 3 at the back on like every team, I think. So I definitely lost some points there to like Dumfries owners. I didn't have much of him at all. Maybe Mailer as well a little bit. I think I was underowned on him. There was just a lot of players I completely had like less than 10% ownership of that were like almost the top scorers for their teams in the group stage. So yeah, it was
interesting, wasn't it? Really, the wing back situation, because it's something we've talked about a lot. The defender situation on FanTeam, and how in general they're less likely to score points than the midfielders and forwards for a variety of reasons, including the lack of bonus points on the game and the fact that midfielders and forwards get a point for completing 90 minutes. Where I think it differed on this game in 2 senses. The fact that there were 5 subs per team and the different sub slots meant that the midfielders and forwards very rarely got 90 minutes. So you lost a point there instantly, pretty much. And also just the systems teams were playing were just very different to in the Premier League. Marcus Alonso aside, you don't, and even he obviously wasn't playing much last year towards the end, but not many fullbacks sort of get in those advanced positions. You sort of saw Dumfries and Spinazzola occupying throughout a lot of it, and even sort of Luke Shaw towards the end. I mean, that goal in the final coming into the middle of the box. You seem to see quite a lot of teams sort of setting up 5 at the back, or even if it's 4 at the back with the wing backs flying up. So I think that was a big issue we had going into this tournament, was we kept with our strategy of defenders are bad, when in reality for this tournament that wasn't the case.
Yeah, you still had to have the right ones though. There was only sort of 4 or 5 who went off, and they were all left-sided defenders. Ironically, I mean, like I think it was Spinazzola, Mailer, and Luke Shaw, and Dumfries mainly, and maybe a bit of Meunier as well, but he might be a right side. He might be right side actually. Oh yeah, and Gussens for the first 2 games was unbelievable as well.
Him. Yeah,
they were so high. Like I think he was the highest one actually. Doyle Gussens. Gussens was playing as a left forward. It was crazy. I've never seen anything like it. But it's just every team seemed to be flooding the left side, and just it was never a left midfielder. It was always a left wing back every single time. It was absolutely. I've never seen anything like it, to be honest. And that was where we lost a lot.
What was disappointing for me, one of those devastating things, was that first game when Florenzi went off injured after, was it 20 minutes or something like that? The first half anyway, wasn't it?
He went off for half time, yeah.
Half time, yeah. Because I had so much of him, because I didn't want to take the rotation risk that was Spinazzola versus Emerson, which in reality didn't exist. But I thought I'd go for the safe option of the more expensive guy. So for him to come off injured, that was a killer, because I think I must have had I had Florenzi in about 15 teams and Spinazzola in about 2. So that was just a massive swing just going into that. So
yeah, and you can lose a lot of these flips in fantasy. I think I had a lot of Windal, for example, when everyone else had Dumfries. Again, I think I made a bad choice there, as it happens, but it just shows you can have 2 players from the same team, and one starts every game and gets 5 attacking returns, and one doesn't start any games and doesn't get any points. I mean, as I say, I think that one's on me, but the fact that I identified the Dutch fullback was someone I really wanted in, and then I just completely went for the wrong one. It can easily happen, and I'm sure it'll happen to us again in the future. So
yeah, it's unfortunate really, because it just shows us the margins really, because going into the tournament we were all looking at those fullbacks, and with me, I had Naylor and Gossens really on in the group stage, but I didn't play them because they were the cheaper players over the defenders. So Gossens was pretty much worthless to me, even though I think I had him all the way through. Yeah,
I did the same. And then obviously as well, the worst part is we benched him for that game week 2 against, was it Portugal, where he went mental? And then we all, I don't know if we all, but I definitely captained him in a lot of teams for game week 3 against Hungary, where he then got nothing, obviously.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what speaks to the unpredictability of fantasy, I suppose, doesn't it? And it's quite interesting. I'm sure we're coming on to it in a second, but how different the games are when it's such a short format comparatively to the Premier League game, where it is based on a few weeks window at a time compared to a 38 game week window. So it's I
think the Premier League game is much more skill based. Is that what you're saying, Doyle? Yeah, is that what you're getting?
100%, way more skill based.
Well, you have to choose really, don't you? With 105 million on this game, you just had to, just get all the best players. It was quite easy in theory, and it was hard to kind of show your knowledge, really. Yeah,
I think that's a really good point. Is the increased budget, and I think we generally, me and Josh, we had the right players as a whole in most of our teams. We missed out on maybe one player here or there, and that was enough to really kill it, because everyone, like you say, had this increased budget, so could afford pretty much whoever they wanted. And I think the midfield pool particularly was quite small in terms of actual good picks there. So while we were all fishing in the right pool, actually getting the correct combination to put you into the higher echelons of the ranks was really, really tough.
I think the budget really hindered I think my approach didn't suit the budget at all, because I think a lot of cheap players, such as Forsberg, I'm talking about, a lot of the defenders as well, they weren't even in my consideration, because I wanted 3 big strikers. I wanted 3 sort of decent price midfield players, and then maybe one a bit cheaper. So that they weren't needed as like enablers because there was so much money spare that like you could have your 3 big strikers and your 3 big midfielders and a premium goalie, for example. I had Donnarumma in a lot of teams, and you just didn't need like 5 or 6 of these enablers, which you do need on the Prem game. Like you will need 5 or 6 like cheaper players on that game, but in this game you just didn't need it, and it cost me in the end because some of the cheaper players massively outscored some of the guys who were like 3-4 million more than them. So
yeah, I get that. And I think one thing I've learned going into Prem season is you got to just play your cheaper players sometimes as well. Like if you think Mele's going to outscore a Mobley one week, even though he's half his price, just play him because it kind of works as differential, doesn't it?
I think that was in play quite a lot towards the end of last season as well, where it seemed like in FPL and FanTeam, like the ideal team didn't necessarily cost 100 million, or well, whatever our inflated budgets were, given the team value over the season. And it felt like you just didn't. You can just see yourself forcing yourself to buy the more expensive players purely for the fact they're more expensive, like you're saying, not necessarily just picking the guy who you think is going to score the most points. So I think that's a really valid point.
Vardy against Iheanacho was a classic example of that at the end of the season. Iheanacho was like 4 million cheaper, and he was obviously a better pick. And to be fair, Dole, we actually went for Iheanacho, didn't we? To be fair, so we called that one right, to be honest. But like we could have easily just saw the extra 4 million in our banks and just been like, oh, I'm going to go to Vardy because he costs more. He's on penalties, which is a definite good thing. But everything in play suggested that Iheanacho was a